You're listening to Dairy Voice by Dairy Business News, a podcast exclusively for the dairy industry.
One of our sponsors of the Dairy Voice podcast is National DHIA. NDHIA ensures information accuracy and represents their members' interests. They are the direct voice for the dairy information industry. To find out more, go to dhia.org.
This episode is brought to you by DRMS, a trusted provider of dairy information and decision tools. As a nonprofit with deep ties to NC State and Iowa State universities, we've spent over 65 years serving the dairy industry, delivering research-backed software, standardized data, and exceptional customer support. Our dedicated team works alongside producers and consultants to ensure they get the training, tools, and insights they need. We turn complex herd data into clear, actionable insights that help producers and consultants make informed decisions every day through solutions built in collaboration with the dairy industry. Learn more at drms.org.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the Dairy Voice podcast by Dairy Business News. I'm your host, Connie Kuber, with Sealpro Silage Barrier Films by Connor AgroScience. Thanks for joining us today. Please like, subscribe, and share this podcast with your friends. Today, my guest is going to give us an education in soybeans for dairy rations. We've been feeding soy products for years to our cows, but Lydell Martin is taking us further. He's got some interesting perspectives and solutions for dairy farmers trying to maximize nutrition, production, and profit. Lydell is a grain dryer repairman with A.N. Martin. So, welcome to the Dairy Voice podcast, Lydell. Please tell us about yourself, the A.N. Martin Company, and how you got to this point in your career. And also, let us know why you love doing what you do.
In 2003, I would have first started working with A.N. Martin Systems, and I would have started out building grain bins, building elevators, conveyors, and as time went along in 2010, I think it was 2010, I would have started doing grain dryer service. I really enjoyed doing service work, working on equipment, making repairs. Till 2020, I started working with some manufacturers on controls on grain dryers. And since grain drying is only 4 or 5 months out of the year that I can keep busy with grain drying, there was another sales fella at A.N. Martin Systems that had started in with designing and selling some soybean roasting systems. So we needed automation. So that's when I got involved. I helped to develop the automation to run the roasting systems. And then we started doing tests with some nutritionist companies, figuring out how to produce a roasted soybean that is, I would say, superior to most on the market. Any roasting system can achieve a quality roasted bean if operated properly. Some systems are harder to get a consistent roasted bean than others.
With over 85 projects, California Bioenergy is without a doubt one of the leading developers of anaerobic digesters for dairy farms in the United States. Since 2006, CalBio has been forming successful partnerships with dairy farmers to create digesters that are built to last. Our CalBio team has the expertise to help lead you through the entire development process. From project design and engineering to credit generation and the day-to-day operations. With subsidiaries in the Northwest, Midwest, and Southwest, CalBio is ready to partner with dairy farmers across the country. Learn more at calbioenergy.com.
Why should I even consider roasting soybeans for my dairy herd?
When I'm talking roasting beans today, I am talking about high oleic soybeans. That is 90% of what I do is roast high oleic soybeans. Now, roasting soybeans has been around for years, has never been a huge thing in the dairy industry. There's been some here and there, but not a huge thing. With high oleic soybeans, we have been able to reduce feed costs, reduce inputs. We have increased components in the milk, fat and protein. which is in today's market, components is what is valuable in milk production.
Right.
So the reduction in feed costs and the increase in milk components has been, those are the two driving factors on why to consider roasting soybeans.
The high oleic beans, they have what's special about them?
The main thing is that I would understand is the linoleic fatty acid in standard soybeans. The linoleic fatty acid is about 50 to 55%. And that can cause some issues with the beans going rancid, that oil going rancid in the bean. Roasting makes that worse. There's also a limit to how much of that you can feed to a cow. You need to be careful on how much of that you can feed. There's a limit. You can feed more of the roasted beans than raw beans, but with standard beans, you have to be careful. The high oleic beans have between 2 and 3% linoleic fatty acid. So we're going from 50 to 55% to 2 to 3%. Now we can start feeding the majority of our added protein and fat coming from soybeans in our ration. To think of roasted high oleic beans the same as standard roasted beans, it's two different feeds. It is two different feeds, two total different, like, they're not the same. It's two different things.
They almost should have a different name.
They should be called a different kind of bean because it is a total different feed source than a standard bean.
So, and you said that this can replace some of the purchased fats?
Yes, it can replace some of your, like, in your feed ration, some of your most expensive ingredients are going to be like your palm fat, your fats added to the ration, your soy meal, your canola meal. The roasted beans can replace a big percentage of your soy, palm fat, and canola meal.
And at a cheaper price.
If you have farms around your area, like most dairies are in areas where there is a lot of soybeans grown in their general region.
Mm-hmm.
And I have seen where you'll have dairies with soybeans getting grown all around them, getting sold to crushing plants out of the area,
Mm-hmm.
and extruding them and then hauling the soy meal back to the area or bringing soy meal in from a different area to feed to the dairy cows. If you can take your beans from your local area, from your neighbor, your crop farmer down the road, and purchase the beans from him and roast them and feed them directly to the cows, or there are some farmers who actually grow their own beans and are selling them and buying soy meal. Well, I look at that as that is huge. That is huge. If you're already growing soybeans and you're selling them to a crushing plant that's then turning them into soybean meal and then you're buying them back, there is a great reduction in feed cost by taking that feed from your field, heat treating it properly, and feeding that right to your cows. Now, I have talked with dairies in areas like California. There's an area I was in out there at some dairies and where there is no soybeans getting grown in the area. So then this is not as interesting of a concept then.
I'm from California. We're getting there, maybe.
Right.
We'll see.
Well, I don't want to say that California is not going to roast beans because there is interest there.
Sure.
There is interest,
Right.
and I have talked with people. The ag in California is very interesting to me.
Yeah.
I'm from upstate New York, and it is very interesting.
Totally different world. Totally different world.
Yes.
Yeah. This is going to get into agronomy a little bit, and maybe you don't want to go there, but what's the difference between growing these high oleic and non-high oleic soybeans? Is there any agronomic differences at all?
Weed control, at this time, there are chemicals that can be used on standard beans for weed control that can't be used on high oleic beans. I am not a professional in that area. I'm far from an agronomist. This is just stuff I hear customers talking about.
Sure.
When they're talking about growing. At the same time, I know people who sell seeds that are saying these are all problems that they are planning to have mitigated within a couple years. It's moving forward. It's still moving forward. Yes.
In feeding these, you mentioned transportation. That's a big issue for trucking these commodities back and forth. But are there any other potential pitfalls and things to be aware of, both on the roasting side and on the nutritional side that you're aware of?
On the roasting side, it is very important that they are roasted correctly. There are a few different nutritional aspects where I have seen people have a custom guy come in and roast. In the last 6 months, I've seen two incidences. Once where a custom guy come in to roast, another place where someone was buying from a commercial roaster where they ended up with beans that were not roasted properly. And that can cause some significant issues in a herd and cost quite a lot of money pretty quick. Roasted properly is very important, and knowing what beans you're feeding. Like I said before, like the difference between the high oleic and standard beans, two different products, cannot be interchanged.
Get your Sealpro silage barrier film today. Protect the seed, fertilizer, labor, and expensive inputs that you've invested in. Choose best-in-class Sealpro now in 3 different versions: traditional 2-roll application, our new co-rolled application, and super simple and wildly successful 1-layer film, Sealpro 1. It's easy to buy, easy to use. Contractor covering? We'll work with them. Learn more at sealprosilage.com. That's SEALPRO silage.com. Family owned and operated for over 25 years. 559-779-5961. That's 559-779-5961.
And we can talk more about getting to the details of the roasting in a minute. But
yes,
I also wanted to know if there's a shelf life to these beans when they're roasted versus not, and how do you store them?
So as far as shelf life, roasted beans, it really depends on how you're storing them. So the way we would do it on farms usually is we would roast them and cool them and then grind them and then put them in storage to be fed. So in that case, I'm going to say you're not going to want to store them more than a couple months. So a couple months, that is a ground meal though. Now, if you're taking whole roasted beans and you are cooling them and then putting them in a grain bin where you can put air on, like if you have a custom guy coming in roasting your beans and then you're putting them in a grain bin where you can put air on them, you can store them from 6 to 12 months. Depending on your facility. So storing them for 6 months roasted is not a problem.
Okay. And then we've talked about feeding into lactating cows. What about heifers and steers?
Feeding to steers, there has been shown an increase in feed efficiency.
Okay.
In feeding the roasted beans to steers. There's a limit to how much can be fed. It's like you don't want to feed more than about 0.3% of the animal's body weight. There is an increase in efficiency on the feeding the steers. On heifers, they have shown to have better reproductive health. For heifers, the fat from the roasted soybeans can improve conception rates and the calf survivability when fed pre-calving. There are benefits to feeding some to heifers, and there is feed efficiency on feeding roasted beans to steers.
Let's get into then the whole roasting process. What's the best method of roasting soybeans?
The best method is to have a consistent feed every day. That's the best method. There's a lot of different ways to roast beans. From what I've seen, I have worked with and worked on at least 4 different brands of roasters. Some roasters, the bean is in the roaster about 30 seconds. Some roasters, the bean is in the roaster up to 45 minutes. What we've seen is a slow roaster it's easier to make a consistent product, because if you're roasting that beans in 30 seconds or 60 seconds, like a lot of stuff is happening really fast, and there needs to be a lot more process time after the roaster. Whereas if we have a roaster that is slow roasting, we can get an evener heat with no burn on the outside of the bean. The way we've done it is with a slow roaster.
Okay.
We utilize one of the slowest roasters on the market. As far as when I'm saying a slow roaster, I'm saying a roaster that has a long retention time,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily a roaster that doesn't roast many beans.
So the process then is we roast these beans and then grind them before storage or not?
We would roast the beans and then we cool the beans and then we grind the beans and
Okay.
put them into your storage then. And as far as storage, we sometimes will go into commodity bays. Some dairies have commodity buildings. Others use hopper bins. We go into them. I personally prefer the hopper bins. It's a keeps the feed cleaner and rodents out of it. That different farms management, different setups work better.
The roaster that you're working with is called SoyRoaster.
Yes. We
Okay.
call it SoyRoaster.
Tell me about that unit.
It's a unit it's basically an auger in a tube with an oil jacket, and we heat that oil up to a predetermined temperature, and then the beans go in the one end, and then they slowly get augered through. There are a couple brands of roasters on the market with augers. However, they vary a lot on how long the bean is in there, how heavy built they are, sizes. There's a lot of variation on that. The ones we use are a commercial built roaster, and the beans would stay in the roaster from 30 to 40 minutes, depending on how fast you're running. And then we put them into a steeping / cooling unit after the roaster. They would sit there for around a half an hour. Then from there, we put them into a grinder, and from the grinder, we blow them into either a commodity bay or a hopper bin. When we started with this roasting process, we had the first couple systems we did, the nutritionists wanted roller mills. They wanted roller mills to crack the beans. They said, we want halves to quarters. We put roller mills in. A couple months in to feeding those cows, they wanted the product ground smaller. So we changed the rolls in the roller mills. We had a system where we changed the rolls 2 or 3 times in the first year. Then we started using hammer mills. We do a variable speed hammer mill so that we can break the beans. If somebody wants halves or quarters of beans, we can do that without getting dust. Your standard hammer mill, when you put the bean in the top, it's going to hit the hammers. It's 6% moisture, 5 to 6% moisture coming out of the roaster. It hits the hammers and you have dust and broken pieces, even if you have a large screen. Whereas we developed a system with our hammer mills where we can break them beans. We slow the hammer mills down, we make adjustments, and we can break the beans. That way, a couple months after putting the system in, if the nutritionist says, look, let's get this finer, it doesn't cost the customer anything to change that meal from halves and quarters to a completely ground soy meal coming out of that roaster. That there has been a big advantage we've done, because it's not. We felt bad on the first systems where we were putting in a roller mill and then we were replacing rolls, and it cost the customer every time we had made a change. It's costing the customer more money. Now we developed a system that you can grind it to whatever your nutritionist feels is best.
You had mentioned before when we were talking about that it's controlled by an automated control panel, correct?
Yes, so that's something that we did different than most. Also, was after we did a couple systems, we realized if we're going to be roasting a lot of beans, large farms, people are not looking for more work to do at the farm.
Right.
Nobody's looking for more work. So we need to accomplish this without making a lot more work. I mean, whenever you add a process to your farm, you're going to add some responsibility. The automation process, there's a lot of different things, a lot of different motors that are starting, stopping on this system. And we have an automation panel on it. When you want to start the roasting, you hit the start button and you walk away. The roaster heats up to a predetermined temperature. The beans start going through and it roasts. It steeps, it cools, it grinds them, puts them in the finished product bin, all without anybody on site. If I owned one of these at my farm, I would probably stop and look in the door, see what's going on at least once a day. You should twice a day. Just stop, look in, take 5 minutes to make sure everything's working properly. If there is a shutdown, it will send you a text message. It will start a shutdown procedure. So long as you're there within 3 hours, it's still going to be hot. Things are not going to be cold. It takes a while to shut down. It's not a fast system as far as starting up or shutting down. It takes about 3 hours to start. It takes about 3 hours to shut down. But that's all right when it's all automated. If you get a shutdown fault, you can, like, it's going to do its own shutdown. It'll be fine. I recommend if you get an alert saying your system's shutting down, you want to go check on it, because it's going to empty the roaster one way or another. Like, the automation is designed to empty the roaster to get the beans out of the heat. So you could have some beans on the floor if you don't check on it within 3 hours.
Okay, gotcha.
So the automation has been huge. That is a huge part of it. I'm going to say
absolutely.
That's close to half the system.
Right. You're not having to stand there and monitor it or have someone do that for you.
Most grain roasters need somebody with them at all times when they're running because of the high fire hazard. Because of our low fire hazard, we do not need somebody there monitoring it. We can monitor everything with sensors.
Right. And it's a low fire hazard because
we do not have any flame or exhaust from the flame coming in direct contact with the beans. Most brands have either hot air from the burner, a couple foot away from the burner, or flames in close contact to the beans. And they'll actually have, like, you'll look at the beans and the outsides will be browned, like darker browned. The beans coming out of our roaster, the color does not change much at all from raw beans. I mean, there is a difference. They're slightly browner, but you don't have those blackened edges because because of how slow we're going, we're not putting as high a temperature to the beans as most roasters, and they're not coming anywhere near the flame.
Tell me about, if I choose to purchase one of these, how does the installation go? How is it shipped to me? How is it set up? All that kind of thing. How do I get started?
That really varies on the size of your operation, the size of the system you want. We offer a system that's in a container where we can ship it to your farm. You set it wherever you want it. The whole system's in a 40-foot shipping container. You connect the pipe from the container to your finished product bin, and from your raw bean bin to the container. And it's a very simple setup. If you're looking for a smaller system or a larger system than that, we would ship the components to you. We have somebody that will come out and supervise to verify the installation goes properly. So if you buy a roaster system, we would ship the components to you. Somebody would stop out and make sure you or whoever's installing it understands how to install everything properly.
Right.
And the commissioning, it depends where you're located, but I would probably come out to commission your system if you would buy one of these. Because when you buy from us, you're not just getting equipment. You're not just getting equipment. I have had people put in their own systems very similar, call me 3 months later and say, I can't get the nutritional value on these beans that you are saying you can get. What am I doing wrong? And I say, well, when you buy my automation, my complete setup, you're getting much more than equipment. You're getting me on site to verify that the system is working the way it's supposed to. You're getting your temperatures correct. And in turn, you're getting a finished product that has the correct nutrition. The RUP on our systems, your rumen undigested protein, is very good. We're getting very good RUP numbers. And then, of course, your PDI, which is a standard number that's looked at with roasting, that we're getting good, but that is a number that's much easier to get good than your, what I call bypass protein, which would be your RUP.
How much electricity does the roaster draw, and what kind of electricity do I need in order to make all this work? And is that figured into your economic benefit of doing this roasting yourself?
The electric draw, the amp draw, would vary a lot depending on your voltage, whether you're high like 460 volt or 230 volt. So I break it down to, it takes almost 3 kilowatt hours per bushel of roasted soybeans. What are you paying for your electric? It's going to take about 3 kilowatt hours to run the complete process. That is to roast, steep, cool, grind, convey it to finished product bin. The whole process takes almost 3 kilowatt hours per bushel. Okay. And then you can calculate your cost based on what are you paying for your, and then we can hook them up to single phase, low voltage 3-phase, high voltage 3-phase, whatever you're working with.
Labor wise, how much effort is this? An everyday operation? Is this a every other day operation? How does that work?
So I touched on it a little bit on the automation there. It's something that you want to stop and check twice a day. It's very little labor. You're going to hit the start button. It's going to run until your finished product bin is full. We always have a safety switch that when your finished product bin is full, it shuts down on its own. And then when your finished product bin gets low, you stop in, press the start button. So I'm going to say it's standard operating. It should be a 10, 15 minutes a day at most for operating the system, because the automation takes care of running it. You just need to stop and just get a visual on it to make sure everything's operating properly. And
I'm assuming that you have different sizes of equipment for different sizes of dairies, or if it's a really big dairy, you'd have a couple of units. How does that work?
Up until now, we have pretty much had one size unit.
Okay.
So, and then we would put parallel systems in. We would put up to 4 units beside each other. Now, myself, I'm a big fan of having, like if you have a large farm, I'm a big fan of having parallel units as far as two hammer mills to grind your corn meal, 2 roasters to roast your soybean meal. That way, if you break down, if one of those machines break down, you're still going. You can run for a couple days until you get the other one fixed. This is something they do with milker pumps in milking parlors. We have just completed testing on a new roaster. It's within the next couple weeks, we're going to start marketing them. I personally was on site running it for 2 days. This unit is going to do close to the same capacity of 3 of our old units. And with this development, there's a few changes we've made in this new unit so that we're going to be able to make various sizes. So we'll be able to do more 1 or 2 roasters depending on the size of the facility, but we should not have to be looking at these 3 and 4 roaster units anymore, 3 and 4 roaster setups, because we'll put 2 larger units in.
Once we've got these up and installed, what does the maintenance look like?
As far as the roaster itself,
right,
the first 10 years should be very minimal maintenance. We've had roasters running, these roasters running for up to 10 years where we have done not much of anything to them. The auger turns very, very slow, so the wear is very minimal. I'm going to say at 10 years, you're probably going to have a little bit of maintenance. We have had in 10 years, there has only been one that has burned out a heating element. And on that farm, we had some other stuff burned out that we think it was lightning that actually caused it. I like to put that in that, yes, there is maintenance, but it's very minimal. The main maintenance on this system is going to be, depending how fine you're grinding your beans, your screen in your hammer mill, and then your hammers. I wouldn't keep spare hammers on the shelf. You're not going to change them that often. I would have a spare screen for your hammer mill on the shelf. Maybe once a year, you'll be servicing the hammer mill. But as far as the roaster, it's going to be quite a few years between maintenance on the roaster itself because of the auger running so slow, and it's running on a Teflon, like there's no metal to metal contact.
You had talked about marketing these things. Are you going to be at World Dairy Expo this year?
Yes, we'll have a booth at World Dairy Expo. I will be there, and we will have one of our shipping container units, the complete roasting unit in the shipping container on site also.
Okay, well, thank you so much for this information, Lydell. We really appreciate it. Sounds like something very interesting that our farmers can look into to save some money, save some time, get a good product that they are taking care of and making themselves. Do you have anything to add that we didn't cover?
For information on them, go to SoyRoaster.com.
SoyRoaster.com. SoyRoaster.com.
Yes.
Okay.
Then the other thing is we've had all of our roasters electric up until now. Some people worry about electric usage.
Right.
With our new models that are hitting the market this month, they can come with as propane heat or natural gas heat. They will still have a similar fire hazard to a water heater. As far as when we first looked at going to propane heat and natural gas heat, we were concerned about fire hazard because that has been a big thing with us. We do not like fire hazard. Our new models do offer that, but still have very similar fire risk to a water heater. That if you don't have enough electric to do a lot, or if you're putting in a commercial system, we can heat with propane.
Say the website again for me.
SoyRoaster.com.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. I've learned a lot about roasting soybeans, that, there's so many things on a dairy farm that we kind of take for granted, or we just don't even think about. And I guess soybean roasting was something I had never thought that much about before. We've got so many things to think about. So thanks for joining us today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
We've been talking to Lydell Martin of A. Martin. I am Connie Kuber with Sealpro Silage Barrier Film by Connor AgroScience. You've been listening to Dairy Voice by Dairy Business News. Please subscribe, like, and share this podcast. And the weather's warm, especially here. Keep hydrated, take cool-off breaks, stay safe out there. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk again very soon.